In this episode of the Misaal podcast, I invite you to listen in on my conversation with Faisal Khan. He is the founder of ScholarDen, an online platform for GRE preparation. He talks about building a community of students seeking advice on test prep, creating a product that could be beneficial to those students, and defining a problem that is large enough to be solved. Let's listen in. Welcome, Faisal, to the Misaal podcast. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Thank you. So, I we first connected on LinkedIn, and it's been, I have been looking into ScholarDen. So, why don't we just get right to it, and you tell us a little bit about ScholarDen, what you do, and what problem you're trying to solve.
So basically, ScholarDen is a AI-driven test prep platform. So what we are helping students is we are personalizing the whole test prep experience and helping students to prepare for the test. It's completely online. It's more like a think of it like a Netflix for the test prep.
Why did you feel like this was something that you wanted to do? Like, do you have like a background in, teaching students?
I started off. I was working in a corporate sector. I was working in a corporate sector for 15 years. In 2016, I was working in Europe, and I was working for a big multinational organization, and I was managing 47 countries at that point in time. When I realized that I need to give back to the community, with respect to the scholarships, education, and stuff like that. And initially, I created a community of students where students were connecting with mentors. And during that experience, I interacted with at that point in time, interacted with more than 20,000 students. And I figured out, the test prep is a broken industry. Test prep are not really, I'm talking about globally, they're not really
Okay.
catering to the needs of students in effective score improvement. So that's where I figured out the problem, and that's in 2018, end of 2018, I decided that I need to focus on solving this problem as a test prep industry, and in 2020 we launched the test prep platform.
Okay, so when you say the group, are you talking about like a Facebook group, or like how did you come
Yeah,
about like building this community?
yeah. Initially, we started off with Facebook. We started creating groups on Facebook, starting from a very zero. I remember in 2016, we created few. Initially, we created one group, and then we expanded to different groups like GRE, GMAC, US admissions, Fulbright. During that experience, we created some WhatsApp group as well.
So what have you seen so far? Is there something that like you feel like when you started off, you were solving a different problem, but now that you have more information, more data, you're solving a different kind of problem, or have you been like consistent?
Absolutely. So when we started off with the ScholarDen in 2016, when I was helping students with regards to scholarship, test prep, everything. So we initially created a marketplace where we were connecting students with mentors. We call it mentors.
Yeah.
And I thought the students are unable to go abroad or go to the US or to other countries because they lack guidance. But during that
Okay.
experience, I figured out that the number of students going abroad were stagnant. Like the numbers were not increasing. So then I figured
Okay.
out the mentoring was not the prime reason. It was basically the test prep that was actually the hindrance for the students to go abroad. So that's why we
Okay.
pivoted the model in 2018, 19, sorry. We pivoted the model to the test prep, and we made it software as a service, and then we launched a test prep in 2020.
So yeah, as a startup or as someone like trying to like evolve, like pretty much as you go on, how important it is to realize like something is not working and then you move on to something different. How important do you think that is?
It's extremely important, I would say, because
Yeah.
if you're trying to solve a problem, I mean, even mentoring was a problem, but it was not that massive problem. Like people still can make it. They can watch some YouTube videos, they can
Yeah.
read some blogs or stuff like that. Maybe they have some mentors in their communities, like seniors, and friends. So mentoring can still help them, in one way or the other way. But when it comes to the test preparation, a lot of students struggle around the globe. So this is
Yeah.
where, that's why we figure out. So I think that identifying a problem, a solvable problem, is very important. And secondly, it's also important that what resources you have. For example, when we were talking about the marketplace, I mean, there's in the marketplace, there's a supply and demand concept. So there's the
Yeah.
students and their mentors, you know. So you need
Yeah.
to understand. I mean, initially when we launched the marketplace, we had 200 mentors at that point in time, but we were dependent on humans, right? So mentors
Yeah.
were those people who got admissions in Harvard, Stanford, MIT. So they were not available all the time. So they had exams, they
Yeah.
had projects. We were dependent on them. Then I figured out, you know, we need to have a solution that is available all the time to students because student does not want to wait for somebody to get free from an exam. You know, they need help ASAP. You know. So then we thought, you know, this model will not work until unless I mean this model will work if you have a bigger problem, like you know, like if you talk about, you know, the problem we see on Fiverr, you know, like it's a like a graphic designing or website development or something like that. The market is pretty huge. But when you talk about the niche, like you know, scholarships and stuff like that, it's a very niche market. Especially we were catering to the masters and PhD students. So yeah, that's why it's very important that whatever problem you look at, it should be a big problem and it should be a solvable problem.
So you mentioned like it was difficult to get help like one on one. So right now, does the platform do you still have an option where students can have access to like a mentor one on one help, or with problems or solutions or something that involves like interaction with someone else while if they're struggling with certain problems or not understanding something?
So what we have done is that instead of having one-to-one mentors,
Hmm.
because we have changed the model altogether, we are more focused toward test prep, and I believe it's very important that a startup founder has to be very focused. Initially, the mistake which I did, I mean, I can share my learning experience as well. The mistake I made,
Sure.
we were focusing on too many things. We were focusing
Mhm.
on test preps, we were focusing on Fulbright, we were focused on US admissions. And US admission is not just one area. We were focused on MBAs, we were focused on PhDs, masters, and you name it. Like there's a student coming from a chemistry background. There's a student who is coming from maths background. There's another student who's from social sciences, English majors. You know, every field needs to have a different knowledge. You know, I mean
Right.
the method is same, but you need to understand. Okay, which universities are good for English, which universities are good for electrical engineering and stuff like that. That's why coming back to your question that, we want to focus on the test prep. And what we have done is that we have given some guidelines, you can say, on our blog, what are the steps you need to take to get to the scholarship or to the US.
So how do you feel like has the industry like changed? Because I know you work with GRE and prep, so most students are trying to go to countries where GRE, all these other tests are accepted. So what's happened since COVID? Has the market has there been a change in how students are approaching it, or has there been like increase in number of students because they have more time now, but they have more time to think about where their life is going, so they're spending a lot more time doing all these test prep?
One thing which have changed, not because of COVID, but it's a pre-COVID scenario where I could feel that with the expansion of social media usage and a lot of stuff happening in a lot of
Yeah.
developing countries, there were a lot of groups like our group. We were very much focused on the US, so there were
Yeah.
groups that were very much focused on other countries like Germany, like Turkey. So every individual who has some expertise with regards to any scholarship, they came up with the same idea of like we did. Like they came up with a let's start off with a Germany scholarship group. Let's start with a Turkey scholarship group. Let's start with the UK scholarship group. So Australia scholarship. So there were multiple groups like that created over in the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years. So that has
Okay.
changed the dynamics of the mentoring concepts. Everything was easily available as compared to the pre-social media era, I would say. And but still, one thing which is still there is not a lot of people has come in the domain of test prep because it's a very technical knowledge and it's a big problem to solve it.
People still have preferences, and now basically what's happened over the years is like people don't just look at the US. There are other countries where they're looking to apply for admissions and all that stuff. So that's great. So yeah, I mean, personally also, I would definitely, I would say this, that I have noticed it too, that a lot of people, students especially, are not interested in the US anymore. There are multiple reasons for for that. Back when I grew up in Dubai. I applied to Canada for admissions as well as the US. And in the US, it was my second choice. I wanted to apply. I applied to a community college. People don't apply to community college. This is 2002. I'm talking about 2001 actually.
Mhm.
So right after September 11th, I am like, okay, I'm not going to get a visa to the US, but I'm just going to apply anyways. And I applied to a community college. And so, weird, long story short, what happened is I got accepted to University of Waterloo in Canada, which was my first choice, but I didn't get the visa. And my second choice, I got the visa, and the rest is history. So things turn out in a way that like you don't imagine. So, but it's definitely a journey. And so, tell me more about like how you have have you been growing consistently, and how does the market for test prep look like for like the next 5 years?
So let me tell you some background why we are trying to solve a test prep. So
Sure.
prior to working on this startup, or I had a very lucrative job. I was based in Europe. I was managing 47 countries, so money was not an issue for me. Coming to this industry, to the education industry, was I was always passionate about helping students. Throughout my career, I had a HR majors. So in HR, you normally have to deal with the employees conflicts, counseling and all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and that inclination was because of my nature. I chose HR because I was more prone to, I was social as well as I was helping students as well, helping employees as well.
Yeah. Right.
So when I got to know that there's an issue in the test prep industry, and I'll explain what the issue is. So basically, the issue is that I when I was not I was working for ScholarDen. At that point in time, I was completely helping students for free. By the way, I mean
Right.
from
Yeah.
2016 till 2019, I was helping like thousands of students for free. I never charged anything for the mentoring. So in that process, I was also partnered with some of the test prep global companies. I was I was helping promoting them among the students because I believe that their solution was better than, because whenever a student comes to a mentor, he wants to know which is the best course, which is the best test prep platform, which books to refer and stuff like that. So it was my responsibility to understand what is happening in the test prep or any area, whether it's test prep, admissions, scholarships, whatever it is. So during that process, I figured out, the biggest mistake a lot of test prep make is they are very much focused on one size fits all approach. And what's that? Let me explain in very simple terms. Let's suppose you have a class of 100 students. You you ask a you hire an instructor, and you ask the instructor to teach one book of XYZ book or whatever the curriculum they have to all 100 students in 1.5 months, right?
Yeah.
And you expect the same results from all of them, which is not possible. Why? Because first of all, students don't have the same background. Somebody would be from medical background, would be from engineering background. Even among the engineers, you'll not find the same results among all the engineers, right?
Right.
Because God has made everybody different. So there is the most effective way of learning is personalized learning. You need to customize the learning aspect with respect to the individual needs. For example, I might be good at maths, but I might not be good at English, for example. You might be good at English, you
Right.
might not be good at, I'm just giving an example, right?
Yeah.
So, and if we both use the same plan for the same number of months, um, it's not going to work because
Yeah.
maybe maybe my goal is, let's suppose I want to apply for the low tier university. Maybe you want to target top notch university, right? So your target
Yeah.
score is different than my target score, and your current, we call it baseline or diagnostic test score, or the current score is different
Hmm.
than anybody else. So we cannot put everybody into one shoe and say, hey, we'll do this and you'll get a perfect score. The
Yeah.
the learning does not work like that. The test prep does not work like that. So basically,
Right.
the test prep, especially the GRE, it works on your skill set. For example, you need to understand a few things like how good is your maths, how good is your logical thinking, how good is your reading skills, how good is your problem solving skills, how good you are in test taking skills. Like some people are really exceptional in all those things, but they screw up on the test take. Because you cannot control their nerves.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, so what we, so this is a problem in the industry, and the issue with the online platform right now is that, and how we are solving it. I'm coming to that point as well.
Yeah.
So the issue in the test prep platform is that they, like I'm talking about online now. We talked about the coaching model. Now I'm talking about online. So in the online
Okay.
model, what is happening is that they have an online platform and they say, hey, I mean, study 1 month plan, 3 months plan. So they don't teach the user that you need to take the diagnostic first. You need to customize your plan with respect to your weak areas, right? So there's no one size fits all approach. Again, I'm coming back to the same concept that you need to first
Yeah.
look at your current position and your target position, and then the prep time is dependent on how much gap you have between your current and the target scores.
I mean, you probably get this question a lot that, why can't I just not go to, YouTube and like learn something? So I think it's a good point that you made, that what you are offering it's very personalized and to the student. And when it comes to test prep, everyone has a different level. So someone could be on a level where they don't need a lot of help, but they need help with calming their nerves when taking the test, or they might need, a little bit coaching on how to approach certain things. So that's a valid point that you're trying to make. And so, how do you see yourself like growing from right now to maybe in the next 5-10 years? Like, where do you see, are you planning on having like physical locations eventually to do test prep, or are you just going to stick with online model?
What we are offering right now is personalized one-to-one mentoring with our students. It's literally personalized. So, for example, you come on the platform. We connect students with mentors. Again, the mentoring concept is there, but it's mainly for the test prep now.
Yeah.
And you're asked to take the diagnostic, and after taking the diagnostic, you're guided personalized way that this is your next steps. These are the next steps you have to focus on. We want to completely change it, and we are very soon launching this model into AI, artificial intelligence, where the human interaction with the student would be there, but the main work would be done through the AI, artificial intelligence. So in the last 2 years,
Okay.
we have collected enough data to train our systems in a way that now we are confident enough that the computer can replicate some of the aspect of the human interaction with the users. And you asked a question like how much we have grown and everything. So test prep is a pretty dominated industry by very few companies in the world. Um,
Yeah.
there are huge giants like Kaplan. There's a Cent Unitas. There's a South Korean company. They were Kaplan has acquired big organization like Barron's. Barron's, you must have heard about Barron's.
Yes. Yeah.
Manhattan Test Prep. That was also acquired by. There's another company, Rocket, was also acquired by Kaplan. So, so big giant companies are actually acquiring the small startups or small organizations.
Yeah.
So again, Kaplan is not solving a problem the way it should be
Right.
solved, right? So we believe that by moving to this area of AI, we're going to grow very quickly. And considering we are a new company, we launched 2 years back, and now thousands of users are actually uh, globally from more than 100 countries are actually using our platform. And
Okay.
and the good part is that we haven't spent a penny on the marketing yet. So we are
Yeah.
mainly
Yeah.
grown through word of mouth and the way. And one thing which is very promising in our favor is that we are the highest test score improvement platform in the world right now. So our
Okay.
students are scoring on average more than 15 points, and that we guarantee. And other test prep platforms like Kaplan just guarantee 1 point, Magoosh guarantee just five
Okay.
points. So we are
Yeah.
the highest test score improvement platform right now, and we want to quickly grow. towards other test preps as well. Like we want to launch SAT and other stuff as well.
How many people do you have working for you right now? Like, what's your team look like?
So we have a very different model. So we have a user, we have a team members working across the world. So we have roughly, you can say 20 employees, part time and full time.
How does is recruiting difficult, especially when you have a startup and something that's so niche that it's like it is? Have you had like candidate pipeline, or are you having hard time finding talent?
HR was my domain. I mean, I was HR professional in the past, so hiring was not
Yeah.
an issue.
So I would think that that would be like your superpower in a way, that you are really good at it. I mean, hiring people, as well as, like, of course you have a passion to teach, but then again, you're also very good at hiring people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have, I must say, we have an amazing team. I mean, I think it's for startup and for the young, startup founders. I would say it's very important that you need to have a very strong team. I mean, I would think millions times before hiring somebody, because I need to understand what is the vision of the company, how that person, because hiring process might take 1 month, 2 month process, or maximum 3 months process, right? But it's very important that the person who you already hired is going to define the culture of the company. So it's very important. You you have a vision to reach X or Y milestone. So you need to understand, okay, if you hire that person, would that help you to get to that level or not? So so hiring is very important.
Yeah, the first few hires are always very important, and because they, like you said, they set the culture and everything. And, like, if you hire someone that is not a good fit, like on initial stages, it might, like, hinder your growth to certain extents. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests about like a book recommendation. I mean, of course, so you have the background to recommend like the best of books, but just anything fiction, nonfiction, or a podcast recommendation, anything that you would think that would help the audience learn something about some subject.
I mean, they are. I mean, I have a few books recommendations. So I think there's a book called Good to Great. Also, there's some books on lean startups. So I would highly recommend startup founders to read those books. So those are amazing books. I mean, I really want to give advice besides the book part, to all the young founders who wants to come up with any new startup. First of all, it's very important that you need to think about how big is the problem. So the bigger the problem is, the more successful the startup would be. First of all. Secondly, in terms of startups like education, edtech, developing a product like any test prep is an easy part. Like, you can hire an expert, you can spend money on that, you can hire expert, you can develop the content and stuff like that. But the most difficult part is to selling it. So it's not that easy. Like, you just make a product online and then people will start buying it. It's not like that, because it's a product that is something needs to be credible as well. For example, because a lot of student has to question it, how good is that test prep company, or how good is that product that I'm going to use for myself or for my kids or for my friends or whatever it is. Developing a product is one part of it, but the most difficult part is, selling it or marketing it.
So basically what you're saying is solve a bigger problem, solve a really big problem, and learn how to sell.
Absolutely, yeah. And
okay.
One thing which I actually I think that helped me in my professional career as well, in the startup as well. I mean, make sure whatever you do is should be done in a very professional way. Like, don't do anything half-heartedly, or don't compromise on the quality of anything. And so if you don't compromise on the quality of the product, or in any terms, you'll grow definitely.
Thank you for that advice. Well, thank you for being on the Misaal podcast, Faisal. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Misaal podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and will thank me by writing a review or sharing it on social media. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks again. See you soon.